Hey, welcome to Dan's Model Works. It is part 2 of our build of the 148 scale Gloucester Javelin FAW 9/9R. And this is by Airfix, and it's probably one of the nicest Airfix kits I've ever built. If you've watched part 1, you'll know that so far all the pieces have basically slotted and clipped together, and the fit has been really second to none, rivaling the best of Japanese kits. So if you're a recent subscriber to the channel and you're thinking, hey, where's the CP Express B train, or the A train rather, and that's being worked on in the background. With this channel, what I do is I flip between two projects at a time, and sometimes there's 2 or 3 other projects kind of way in the background that I'm getting ready for. So if you're new to the channel and you're watching this video at random, you can generally find a playlist on my channel of every major project. Generally everything that had more than one part, you can find the playlist for, and you'll be able to find all of the videos for that subject all in one place. Just a recap from part 1. This is a fairly substantial manual. It has 100 steps, and then there's 3 pages of painting guide here. And as well, just to make sure you're totally intimidated, there's another sheet that tells you where all the stencils go. However many stencils there are, probably, I don't know, many. I see a 60, see some 80s. I think it's safe to assume that there's close to 90 stencils to go on this beastie. So what we've got, what we have together is the fuselage, and we've got the cockpit, and the only parts that were added to the cockpit were some masking tape for the straps on the seats. Everything else is just stock the way Airfix tooled it. It's kind of dusty. I'm just going to knock the dust off here, and then I'm going to take it over where the light is better so you can see inside. Alright, I came over to the small hobby bench where there's a light directly above, and you can see all the crusty little details inside there. Definitely good work to Airfix for creating such a good interior that basically requires almost no extra work. Turn it this way. You can see the instrument panels there as well. So let's get on with some assembly. You may recall how smug I was remembering to open up these 2 small holes here, because that's where the flight refueling probe goes. Well, if you're going to be putting the gun pods on, there's 6 more holes that need to be opened up. These 2, and then these 2, and then 2 more here. And no, I didn't remember to drill those out before I glued everything together. Fortunately, not having the wings on yet, I was able to put a very bright flashlight in the side here, and that lit up the spots where the holes were supposed to be, and I was able to drill them out from the outside. Never said I was perfect, far from it. So, yeah, you gotta look for those little drill the hole here notes. I've got the main landing gear bays put together. Basically, you have the main outer piece here, and then you've got a bulkhead to go in, and then you've got this lacy bit of struts in there. So all of this gets painted silver. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to give it a coat of panel wash to bring out the details. Here's our main landing gear bay after a coat of silver paint and then some panel wash. Sloshed about in there. And you can see This is the upper left-hand wing, upper port wing, and the landing gear bay fits inside this clearly delineated space. These slots right here are for the wing spars to slide onto. Obviously, you wouldn't do this until you would put the top and bottom of the wings together, but it does illustrate how these are going to work. Okay, so I decided that in spite of how well engineered this kit was, there was still a little bit of room for improvement. So you can probably, hopefully, see that I've added some white plastic on the top and bottom of our wing opening here. Now these spars do locate everything very, very precisely, but just even during quick test fittings, I found that there could be some up and down misalignment on the leading and trailing edges, so I thought, let's just install some plastic stripping here. Now, you do have to make sure that you adjust the thickness of your pieces of plastic, because there's things that have to be cleared. If I plop this in, you see that where our landing gear bay goes, that takes up a little bit more space. Same thing on the underside of the wing here. If I plop this one in. Otherwise, everything fits fantastic. But you can see right here that there's a thicker part of the wing, and that would interfere with the tabs that I put in. So I had to trim that back a certain amount. You see this is not as deep. Hopefully this makes for a fantastic fit and doesn't make things worse. Now I've got my assembly tabs added to the other wing root. If you're going to do this, I would suggest that you fit these before gluing the tops and the top and bottom wing together. Because if you do that, you can take each wing surface and just set it in place and make sure that your tabs aren't going to be interfering with anything. So that way, when you glue your wings together, top and bottom, when you slide them on, you know where everything is going to fit. You're not going to be like, oh no, I've got a little triangle here who's interfering or something like that. Now I have to have forgotten something, because this has to be the least dramatic wing assembly I've ever done. Just 2 clothespins on there. I was able to pretty much push the leading edge together and run some Flexifile glue, which is the most aggressive glue we've got. It's basically equivalent to the Plastrex cement. It dries almost instantaneously. I was able to just slather some on the inside, and the whole leading edge just kind of welded itself together. Just a tiny bit of little blobs of glue have come out, and I would rather just quickly lightly sand that than have to slather on a whole pile of putty. So yeah, continue to be impressed. Now, how did we do with our various test fittings and putting these alignment strips in here? How did we do? Slide it on. Geez, that went on with a nice clunk. Now, it does require a little bit of force to hold it in place, but that's a darn fine seam. Let's look at the other one. Mim shows EC. This just clumps right on there too. I think it's time to put some glue on this. That's our wings on. Now, these ailerons are movable. I'm probably going to be freezing them in place. Don't make the mistake of thinking that these are flaps and they can be down. Since they're ailerons, if one is up, the other one has to be down a corresponding amount. The flaps, I believe, are right here. But yes, I'm going to be putting a bit of glue on mine to keep them basically level. But I thought I'd leave them loose just so you could see that, there's that bit of animation if you really want it. Another bit of animation you can have, should you desire it, is the rudder on our tail here. It does rotate reasonably well, but if I pop it out, you can see that the hinge pin is pretty tiny. So that's the sort of thing I can see getting broken. So once again, I'm gonna glue it in fixed, just because I'm not planning on playing with this. So we have some more posable bits and movable bits. The elevators are posable. You can choose what angle you want them on. I've gone for a very slight down pose. Now, the stabilizers have an adjustment to them as well. Let's flip this around this way. You can see we've got a very large hinge there, and then there's a pin. When you put it all together, you'll have about this much movement available. I'm probably going to freeze this in a neutral position. Because I've said a few times, I'm not planning on playing with it. I'm going to pick whichever configuration looks the cleanest. But it is interesting in that if you've ever wondered about these T-tails, usually, and this even goes for airliners that have T-tails, usually the whole stabilizer can be adjusted, and then the actual elevator has more motion as well. Our T-tail is all together, and it's a curious mix of sleekness and awkwardness. But you can see here is the lug, or the slot this lug is going to fit into. Once again, very little drama, but you can see there is some wiggle here, so when you do glue it in place, you're going to want to sight from behind and make sure you've really got that perpendicular before you wander off and let the glue dry. So we've got our tail on. I think it turned out fairly square. This side's a little high. I might tweak it down a little bit still. Next thing I'm going to do, however, is the instructions actually say to put a bunch of little spiky bits on the underside. And then to put the gun pods on using the holes that fortunately I spotted and drilled out before it was too late. I'm going to put these on first, just because when I set it down, that way I won't have all the little fiddly bits getting knocked off. These will kind of take the brunt, because it's going to be quite some time before we can put the landing gear on. Okay, we've got our gun pods on here, and we've got some of the other smaller parts. We've got some small air scoops there. There's another one here, and there's an air scoop that actually faces backwards. Now, I don't know if the camera will pick it up. Hopefully it will. But these scoops, they were actually blind. Just the way they were molded, they weren't, they didn't have an opening. So I basically drilled that out using another number 11 X-Acto knife blade. This one was drilled out as well. I only cut my finger once. So now I'm going to turn into putting as many little crusty bits here on the top as well. Well, I think I'm about ready to throw some paint at this, at least on the underside. There's still a few things to go on the top side, but I've got everything I want on the underside with the exception of the pylons. I'm going to paint those separately. I'm not going to make the same mistake I made with the Harrier. I'm going to paint them separately, and then I'll just glue them in later. Makes masking the upper surfaces easier. As you can see, I've got some toilet paper stuffed in my wheel wells. And the other piece of masking I'm going to do is I'm going to put some tape over top of my cockpit here. And there's a lip inside the radome opening here, so my clothespin should snag on that. I should be able to hang this in my spray booth. So let's give this puppy a coat of white on its vast underbelly. And through the miracle of not filming it, there's the underside of our Javelin painted white. I've also painted the drop tanks and the pylons, and over here we have the various landing gear doors. So I think we're going to call it quits on this episode. I don't know how far we are. Thinking under 20 minutes. So thanks for watching. Until next time, just keep on modeling.